Professor, thank you so much for your introduction. Thank you for the honour of this invitation. And may I say, the snow might be outside, but it's very warm in every sense here in this theatre. But in the past few decades, more has been achieved to reduce poverty than at any other period in human history. In countries like China, India and Indonesia, many hundreds of millions have been lifted from subsistence to the middle class. Despite the crisis, worldwide, income per person is still up by over 60% in the past decade. The global middle class is growing from 1.8 billion now to over 3 billion in 10 years' time. This progress is partly due to better science and technology. It's partly due to the inherent human aspiration to do better. Mostly, though, it's been driven by the intellectual and philosophical conviction that freer trade and smaller government will strengthen prosperity, and the instinct that empowered citizens can do more for themselves than government will ever do for them. Essentially, what's happened over the past few decades is that officialdom has begun to grasp that human freedom is less a threat than an opportunity. And as soon as people have economic freedom, they create markets. That's what they do. Markets are the proven answer to the problem of scarcity. They rest, as Roger Scruton has just observed, upon the kind of moral order that arises from below as people take responsibility for their lives, learn to honour their agreements and live in justice and charity with their neighbours. Now, even though the crisis was the gravest economic challenge the world has faced since the 1930s, it's important to remember that it was not a crisis of markets, but one of governance. Now, a certain level of government spending is necessary and good. In Lincoln's words, governments should do for people what they cannot do for themselves, and no more. In the decade prior to the crisis, consistent surpluses and a preference for business helped my country, Australia, to become one of the world's best-performing economies. Then, a subsequent government decided that the crisis had changed the rules. Bullshit! We should spend our way to prosperity. Well, the reason for spending soon passed, but the spending didn't stop, because when it comes to spending, governments can be like addicts in search of a fix. But after the recent election, I'm pleased to say Australia is under new management and once more open for business. Bullshit! To boost private sector growth and employment, the new government is cutting red tape and reducing the tax burden by scrapping the carbon tax and the mining tax. We've established a once-in-a-generation Commission of Audit to reconsider the size, the scope and the efficiency of government. We're streamlining environmental approvals and have already ticked off new projects worth over $400 billion. We've successfully concluded negotiations for a free trade agreement with South Korea, and we're working on agreements with Japan, China, India and Indonesia, as well as wider ones such as the Trans-Pacific Partnership. With an ageing population, as so many countries have, we're implementing measures to get more people into work, like a fair income, as we say in Australia, paid parental leave scheme, to give mothers in the workforce their full wage for 6 months. We're investigating childcare changes that will respond to modern families participating in a round-the-clock economy. We're determined that fit, working-age people will work, preferably for a wage, but if not, as a condition of receiving unemployment benefits. We'll do more to keep people with temporary health conditions in the workforce rather than on a pension. And we're accelerating the construction of major infrastructure, especially roads, because time spent in traffic jams is time lost from work and family. Every country's circumstances are different, but this is what we are doing in Australia to boost growth, productivity and participation. Some countries might find our example instructive, just as we have learned from others' experiences. Thanks very much.